¿Cuántos no hablamos acerca de cómo somos manipulados, cómo el sistema tiende a manejar toda nuestra vida y conducirnos por el camino que ellos lo desean? Pero dime, ¿has visto en realidad material, videos que sean razonablemente creíbles, que tengan la lógica necesaria como para que tú digas es cierto y que empieces a tomar acción, porque eso es lo principal? Estamos quejándonos, estamos hablando de cómo las cosas marchan mal, pero ¿qué hacemos? Mira el video y me cuentas.
Well, this is overdue. Let's talk about the West's favorite supervillain, Muammar Gaddafi, led Libya from 1969 to 2011. During this time period, Libya went through transformations that made it one of Africa's most developed nations. Gaddafi's priority was that he wanted to nationalize oil. By 1973, he had nationalized over 50% of Libya's oil, stealing from the hands of British Petroleum. You see, the problem was, he sort of felt that the profits from the oil should stay in the local community. And he then started to redirect that money to do good things for Libya. One project was the Great Man-Made River Project. This was a monumental endeavour for Libya, and it had the goal of supplying fresh water into the Sahara. It was by far the world's biggest irrigation project, building on centuries of Libyan expertise in irrigating the desert. They had been doing this before even the Romans started to bother them. It's an amazing thing. They were able to turn the desert into arable farmland. With the success of projects like this, they started to do other unspeakable crimes like modernize housing. Gaddafi's regime invested heavily in housing. An Irishman could never. Reduced homelessness and replaced shanty towns with proper urban planning. He implemented progressive social policies that substantially improved the quality of life for Libyans. He made education free. When Gaddafi took office in 1969, literary rates in Libya were 10%. By 2011, they were at 88%. He started to provide free healthcare. When he took office in 1969, life expectancy in Libya was 57 years old. By 2011, it was 75 years old. Gaddafi's legal reforms promoted gender equality. He brought in laws to ensure wage parity between men and women. He outlawed underage marriage. He mandated that you must have the woman's consent to marry her. And he proactively encouraged women into education, into the workforce. Why? Because he knew his country would be more successful. It's not about just loving women. There's actual economic benefits to gender parity in an economy, and he knew this. But why was he ousted? What is it that the Americans didn't like, apart from the whole nationalized oil? The step too far for our Western overlords was this unique political system. Please correct my pronunciation. It was called Jamahariya. Jamahariya? We're all learning. It roughly translates or means state of the masses, like a democracy run by the people. This guy was a criminal. They had these things called people committees. So they were local committees that were established specifically to proactively engage citizens with democracy. It's not your responsibility to vote, it's the democracy's responsibility to come to you. And it aimed at decentralizing governance. Tens of thousands of people participated in Gaddafi's democracy. They participated in the committees, they discussed issues reasonably, and they voted to pass resolutions between themselves. They agreed all of these local and national infrastructure projects. They were not mandated by Gaddafi. He literally was fulfilling the mandate of his people. Gaddafi's policies overall had the net economic impact on Libya where the per capita income rose over $11,000. In context, that positioned it as Africa's wealthiest nation. People in Libya did incredibly well under this government. Because of him, Libya's score on the Human Development Index rose to the top of the pile, the best in Africa. He turned an underprivileged, abused nation into Africa's most prosperous country. through decentralized governance, strategic nationalization of Libya's own resources, and expansive social programs. While it is essential to caveat that these accomplishments occurred under an authoritarian regime, this remains a topic of debate. Define authoritarian if you have decentralized committee decision making. It's just to say Gaddafi didn't have to do any of it. He could have just played the role of narcissistic dictator, but he didn't. He asked the Libyans what they want and he delivered that. Part 2, I'm going to talk about all the Western interference.